Hello and welcome to Encore. Nathan Hill's The Nix is one of the most explosive literary debuts of recent years. That's coming up. Released to rave reviews in 2016, the novel quickly climbed up the New York Times bestseller list. The Guardian, the Washington Post and Newsday ranked it one of the best books of the year. And well, as for Hill, John Irving says the Iowa native is the best new writer of fiction in America. The best. Nathan Hill, welcome to Encore and to Paris. What a whirlwind it's been. You went from being a homebody, you've said, basically holed up writing The Nix over the course of 10 years to touring it around the world, and you'll be soon reunited with your wife Jenny back in Florida. So is the grass greener?
It's been amazing. I've been traveling for this book for about 15 months now, and I've met so many readers, booksellers, librarians, book lovers all over the world. It's been really, really fantastic. But yeah, my wife misses me. I haven't been home for more than 2 or 3 weeks in about a year and a half. So I'm eager to get back home, see her again, start working on the next book. But it has been a pretty amazing few months.
Now, we got to this point. You spent 10 years writing this book. Mm-hmm. Now, you've said that the people you went to school with would release book after book while you continued to work quietly, diligently up to this debut. Now, what started out as a short story turned into this 620-page triumph. How does it feel to have arrived?
It feels great, especially after so many years of working in silence on it. After about year 7, it gets to be pretty embarrassing. Your friends ask you, like, are you still working on that novel? And you're like, oh, you kind of want to bury your head a little bit. But it feels wonderful. It especially feels nice that so many people have been interested in reading it. For 10 years, the only person who knew anything about the book was my wife, who read it as I wrote it, completely out of order. And she was a big fan.
And you dedicated the book to her?
I did. She helped a lot. She was a good sounding board as I was writing the book. But yeah, it's been fantastic that so many different readers from so many parts of the world have enjoyed the book. Has been really, really gratifying.
Now, The Nix has certainly found its audience, as you've mentioned. You've been compared to American writer John Irving, who is one of your literary heroes, and he in turn compared you to Dickens, which is pretty incredible. How do you feel about all the hype?
Well, part of it is is marketing. Like, nobody knows who I am. I'm a complete unknown, so they have to compare me to other people. So if you like John Irving, maybe you'll like Nathan Hill. So that's part of it. But there have been a couple pinch me moments. The John Irving Dickens one being maybe the top. I've been a fan of John Irving since I was 18 years old, and so to have him say really nice things to me is more than I could ever dreamed of.
Well, I think you're being a little bit modest, Nathan. This book has really
I'm an Iowan, that's what we do.
It struck a chord with so many people. And we went to meet with some of your readers at Paris's Shakespeare & Company. Take a look.
I love it because of the characters. It felt very true. It felt like the real world, and he has a style that flow that is amazing, I think.
I thought the characters were really relatable. I thought that the book really tapped into American life as it is now from lots of different perspectives. Even the character who's addicted to video games, but in a really thoughtful, humanistic way.
It was hilarious. The absurdist humor, I was erupting into side-splitting laughter.
The main characters are really fascinating, and you watch the search of this son for his mother's past, and the more he goes, the more he's lost in a kind of big labyrinth of facts and ideas.
How does it feel to watch that back?
That is so cool. Some of those readers talked to me after the event last night, and we had really nice conversations. But that they would say such nice things when I'm not even there to witness it is pretty spectacular. Thanks for that. That was great.
Now, the road to this point hasn't always been easy. You were a small-town guy who moved to the Big Apple, wide-eyed, determined to get published, and then something really very discouraging happened. Your laptop, 3 years' worth of work, your hard disks, everything, your your entire body of work was pinched from your car. Now, after the initial anguish wore off, did you find it liberating, really, to have nothing else left to lose?
Well, it was really sad for a long time. It was 3 years of writing. Everything I had written in my graduate program just disappeared one day, and there was a manuscript in process, and I was too sad to even continue with that manuscript. So I started writing something new. Unbeknownst to me, it was going to be the Knicks. I didn't know that at the time. Hilariously, I just thought it was going to be a short story. Liberating, maybe. I know that once I ended up leaving New York City after only a couple years. I lived there for a couple years and was too discouraged there and ended up leaving. And that was much more liberating, like getting out of the publishing world. I stopped worrying about who I was impressing or not. Stopped worrying about who was getting the book contracts and who wasn't. And that was the most liberating thing, when I stopped worrying about being published and just started writing what I wanted to write.
Writing, and you also threw yourself into a lot of research on this novel. On one front, it's a family drama centered on a mother and son, and against the backdrop of 3 different historical periods in the US, the earliest being the Student Riots of 1968. What drew you to these particular moments in time?
Well, there seemed to be some symmetry between what happened in 1968 in Chicago, which of course was the big riot at the Democratic National Convention regarding the war in Vietnam, and what was happening in 2011. Mostly it was about what I saw similar between those two epics was the kind of political polarization in the United States, the political discourse in the country, where the two sides not only couldn't they not agree on policy, but they can't even agree on basic facts. You know, the left and the right are so far apart from each other, and that felt very familiar. It felt like we were going back into that kind of a period in American politics.
Now, other worlds come to light in this novel, one that I'm particularly fascinated by, and that's centered on a character called Ponage. Am I saying that right?
You are, Ponage. That's
Ponage,
right.
And he's a gamer guru, and that's inspired partly by your own phase of addiction to World of Warcraft. I've heard that you have a love-hate relationship with that game.
I do. World of Warcraft. If
you see there, we've got it up there.
Oh, there it is. If
Bring back memories, Nathan.
It does. It really does. If your readers don't know, it's a kind of fantasy role-playing game, and millions of people play it. And I found myself playing it after all of my stuff was stolen in New York. It was almost like an antidepressant for me. Things weren't going very well in New York City. All of my writing had been taken from me. I wasn't making very much money, but I could play this game and be really good at it. And that gave me, I don't know, something that I needed at the time. And I played it, I don't know if I would say I was an addict, but I played it very heavily for 3 or 4 years before finally I just realized, why am I spending so much time playing this game? And I pulled back and quit, and I haven't really played since.
Now, the title of this book, The Nix, is a Norwegian shape-shifting water spirit. That's what it's based on. Now, legend has it that it comes in the form of a horse to children, only to then drown them. On a personal level, what's been your Nix in life?
Well, I told all of my friends and family from a very young age that I was going to be a writer. And then I went to school to become a writer, and then I moved to New York City to be a writer in New York City, and then it didn't happen, you know. And I think that was a big problem. I had kind of given this thing, being a writer, I had given it power over my identity, who I thought I was, you know. And when I failed at that, when I was rejected for my writing, I felt personally rejected, you know, and that was that was a really terrible thing to feel. And I realized only later that you kind of can't do that. If you're writing in order to impress all these people that you've told along the way, then you're not writing for a very good reason. You're writing to impress strangers, you know. You're writing to impress your friends. And part of the reason why this book took 10 years to write was because I had to let go of a lot of those things. And
when you really did get back to yourself, you created a piece of work that's very interesting and also structurally interesting as well. You play around with that in this novel. There's a 10-page chapter that's 1 sentence long, and also a choose-your-own-adventure section. You're a big fan of those books when you were a kid. I have to say that I was as well.
Oh, good.
Now, If you had to choose your own adventure, what might be 3 different plot lines or options for Nathan Hill now coming up?
Oh, that's such a good question. I was just at Shakespeare and Company last night, and I learned of this program where young writers, usually 20, 21 years old, get to live in the store and kind of clean up a little bit, but they get to live in Shakespeare and Company in Paris and be young writers in Paris. Had I known about that when I was 20 years old, I would have done that for sure. So that's maybe one of them, just come to Paris as a young man. I think I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have left all of my I wouldn't have left my computer in the car to get stolen.
But then we might not have the Knicks.
Yeah, you never know. So I don't know. I gotta say I'm pretty happy with how everything's turned out.
The television rights to the Knicks have been picked up by J.J. Abrams, and Meryl Streep
That's right.
is set to star. I've heard your mum's pretty excited about this.
That was the first time she was speechless in this whole process, was when I told her that Meryl Streep wanted to play Faye. And so yeah, I'm so excited. JJ and Meryl, and we have a screenwriter named John Logan, are going to do a fantastic job. I have so much confidence in that team that I can't wait to see what happens.
We're going to wrap up the show with your cultural pick of the moment, Nathan, and that's Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk. What's so great about the film?
Well, this came out over the summer when I actually had some free time. It's the only movie I've seen recently, but I thought it was beautiful. Not only is it a just heroic story, but as you know, I'm interested in storytelling and how to tell a story in an interesting way. And Nolan always likes to play with time, you know, in any of his movies, Interstellar or the one about dreaming. Oh no, what was it called? I forget. He always likes to play
Inception?
with Inception. Thank you. He always likes to play with how a story unfolds and time in different stories. So this is told in 3 stories. One lasts an hour, one lasts a day, and one lasts a week, and they're all interspersed with each other. And I kind of love how he made the jigsaw puzzle work that way and made it incredibly dramatic with this kind of very interesting storytelling narrative that I've never seen before.
Well, before we share a clip of Dunkirk, I'd like to thank you very much, Nathan, for joining us here on Encore. Everyone, go pick up a copy of The Knicks. It's really, 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 really good. Remember our website. Connect with us on social media. There's more news coming up on France 24 right after this.
The enemy tanks have stopped.
Why?
Why waste precious tanks when they can pick us off from the air like fish in a barrel?
There are 400,000 men on this beach.